Okay, it's transfer deadline day at Ipswich Town and across League One, and it looks like it's going to be a fairly busy one, probably centred on exits rather than incomings, but nothing's impossible at Ipswich. Stuart Watson, it is 9:40 a.m. on Monday, January the 31st. Should we quickly discuss what's come in the previous 30 days of this month before we get on to what's likely to happen in the final 24 hours of it?
Yeah, quick recap. The first bit of news was Macaulay Bonne. Ipswich and QPR came to an agreement to ensure that loan deal does indeed go to the end of the season. So that was the first bit of good news. Then Christian Walton had his loan deal from Brighton turned permanent. So that was a real coup for Ipswich to keep their goalkeeper on a permanent basis. A little spell where he got recalled and we didn't know what was going to happen there, but he remains. And then a couple of new faces towards the latter end of this month. Tyreece Simpson on loan from Bristol City, the midfielder, and more recently, Dominic Thompson, left back / left-sided player on loan from Brentford. So they are our ins so far, and we've had a few exits as well, haven't we?
Yeah, exits from around the fringes. Really, Louis Barry's loan was terminated. We saw that coming a few months off. I think Toto Enciala's gone to Fleetwood. He had drifted away from the first team scene, and then 2 loan exits as well, with Thomas Holy going to Port Vale. Obviously, Ipswich's third choice goalkeeper. He's gone somewhere else to play, and Miles Kenlock has joined the army of ex-Ipswich players down the road at Colchester. So the 4 exits there, but looks like there's going to be more today, Stu. Number 1 in that list looks like it's going to be Scott Fraser. Bid accepted from Charlton for him. He's been given permission to undergo medicals, talk terms with the Addicts, and looks like he could be moving on just 6 months after arriving in the summer from MK Dons with plenty of promise. It's an interesting one, isn't it? With plenty of thoughts either way on it.
Yeah, I think this is going to really split people's opinion. As when you sign 19 players in one transfer window, chances are not all of them are going to work out, and it's a shame because what we've seen of him, he's a very good player. He's a classy footballer. He's came here with the reputation as being one of League One's best players over the last 3 years with Burton and MK Dons, but Ipswich just haven't been able to find a place for him in the system. Paul Cook tried him wide left, wide right, a little bit deeper. He's not had a lot of game time at his favoured number 10. And that's continued to be the case since Kieran McKenna arrived. So if they can get their money back on him from the summer, then who knows, it might enable Kieran McKenna to go and get someone that he feels fits the system a little bit better. I don't know.
Yeah, it does sound like the money will be coming back. It's kind of, it's not a figure I know exactly, but it sounds like a kind of a middling 6-figure fee, which is money back plus a small profit potentially on a player that's not really found his feet at Ipswich. Clearly, as you say, a very, very good football player, but where does he fit? It's hard to see where he fits. We knew in the summer, we were talking about it for the first 2 months of the season, about just how much midfield and attacking midfield in particular traffic there was. He's not managed to force his way beyond that. It's Sam Morsey is nailed on as one of the central 2, and Lee Evans looks to be as well. It's hard to see where he fits in, but undoubtedly a really, really good football player. I would feel sure there's been some push from his side of things just to go and play, because this is his 4th League One club he'll be at in 18 months, really. He wants to play football. He didn't come to Ipswich to go backwards in his career. He came to it to go forward. So I imagine there's been some push from him for this move to happen. But Charlton's an interesting one. He looks more of a fit there to me in terms of their 3 central midfield system. I think he could do some damage for them there. And he's a player that I think Johnny Jackson will look at and see a little bit of him from his playing career and what he liked to do. So this could well be one where we look down the road to the Valley and see a player doing really, really well for himself. But on the other hand, I can see from an Ipswich point of view why moving him on now when you can recoup all of that transfer fee would be the right thing to do from a business sense.
Yeah, we'll see how that pans out. But bid accepted is your understanding, Andy, as we sit here at the moment. So it looks like the wheels are in motion on that one. Probably not the only exit that's likely to happen today. There are a few players clearly on the fringes that have been lacking game time that look like they will move on. Hayden Coulson, whose loan spell from Middlesbrough just hasn't got off the ground because of injuries. I think 6 appearances, 2 of those have seen him limp off. He hasn't featured for some time now. You would imagine the arrival of Dominic Thompson would signal his loan deal from Middlesbrough to be cut short this month. Bailey Clements again is another one on that left side that, after that little flurry of starts under Paul Cook leading up to Christmas, has not featured a great deal. There's talk of him going on loan to Stevenage. So a couple of left-sided players may well be moving on today.
Yeah, I feel sure that Coulson's loan will be terminated. Will be interesting to see whether he remains at Middlesbrough or goes out somewhere else. Obviously, a new manager up there. He was loaned out by Neil Warnock. Chris Wilder in the chair now, so it'll be interesting to see how he's used there. A shame, really, isn't it? Because when he has been able to get on the field, he had the attributes that you'd like to see in that position.
Yeah, came with a big reputation. Someone who'd been linked with I think £10 million plus move to Newcastle at the early stages of his career. Played quite a lot in the Championship for Middlesbrough. Looked perfectly suited to the Paul Cook marauding fullback system, but just hasn't happened for him because his body's let him down ultimately, which is sadly the case. It sounds like he's working his way back to fitness now, but Ipswich couldn't put all their eggs in that basket and hope that he was going to be able to hit the ground running for the second half of the season. So Thompson's in. You imagine Coulson will depart.
Yeah, then you move on to 2 players that we've been talking about potentially moving on for a week or so now: Idris El Mizouni, Raheem Harper. Both have got offers on the table in terms of loan that I think Ipswich could go with quite quickly if they make that decision. But is that a decision they want to make now? I think that's probably what they're discussing today. It's a football decision down to Kieran McKenna by all accounts. So with Scott Fraser moving on, is that a call you necessarily want to make? Idris El Mizouni started at the weekend.
Yeah, well, Morsey's still got 2 games of his 4-game ban to serve against Gillingham this weekend, and then Doncaster on the Tuesday night to follow. Lee Evans, we've heard for a number of days now that he's close to coming back after that little, I think, groin tweak that he suffered in the warm-up against Accrington. He's missed the last couple of games. You would hope that he's back in and around it, but if that is worse than perhaps the club are letting on, then maybe it is prudent to keep hold of at least one of those players, especially with Fraser going out the door. At one stage, we were talking about a plethora of central midfield options, and we were scratching our head at why Tyreece Backinson had kind of been brought in, because that was the last position that Ipswich needed extra bodies for. But how quickly things can change in football. And as you say, El Mizouni started at the weekend. I thought, as has always been the case with Idris, he never lets himself down when he comes in. He's tenacious. I think he's the closest thing they've got to a Sammy Morsey backup figure stylistically. So out of those 2, if there was one to stay and they put that loan on pause, I would suggest it would be El Mizouni and maybe look to get a bit of game time for Raheem Harper, who, let's be honest, they've signed a like-for-like player for in the form of Tyreece Backinson by the looks of things.
Yeah, that say one was left out. What would that leave? That would leave Morsey, Evans, Tom Carroll, Tyreece Backinson, and let's say Idris El Mizouni. Five central midfielders for 2 positions. Obviously, with Morsey and Evans currently out. Enough cover there. I personally, I don't think they've got adequate cover for Morsey. I know what you're saying about Idris, and stylistically, I'm not sure that is covered enough, and I haven't. That's something I've kind of felt since the end of August. But whether you can go out and get somebody to do that, to be the backup to the club captain, is difficult. So Idris does have those qualities. He's got that style. He has got some tenacity in him. So I think if you're looking for a backup, then he would probably be it. The other central midfielder that needs to be talked about is John Nolan, Stu, who we haven't seen play for more than a year now.
Yeah, it's from our understanding that they're very close to agreeing a mutual termination of his contract. It would have been up in the summer with the 12-month extension clause having already been taken on him. So, yeah, as you've just said, hasn't played for more than a year. It's I'm left with a few what ifs on John Nolan. I know people will go, well, he's part of the sort of the Paul Hurst transfer window that spectacularly backfired and too much too soon, and Ipswich got relegated. But towards the back end of that season, when Ipswich went down from the Championship, I thought we were starting to see what John Nolan was all about. There was a game at West Brom that really sticks in my mind where Ipswich had so much of the ball. Nolan scored, they drew 1-1, and I thought he was going to be a real star player in League One for them. Didn't really happen in that first season. I think probably got caught up in that squad rotation of Paul Lambert's, but that the first season post-COVID, behind closed doors, he was right up there in terms of player of the month in that August period, scored a few goals. But again, like Coulson, as we said, his body's let him down. So many different little injury setbacks. A lot of them seem to be centered around his calf. He's had knee problems as well. And they just haven't been able to keep him fit. So, yeah, that's where we're at. It sounds like he's just got himself back towards fitness. That's the reason they've probably been able to come to an agreement on his contract, because he will have free agent suitors. When people miss out on their targets today, they'll look to the free agent market, and I'm sure John Nolan will be a name that jumps off the page for League One clubs.
Yep, good age, good League One experience. Has played in the playoff final, of course, in this division, and has got a season in the Championship under his belt as well. So I'm sure we'll see him pop up again. Just one more potential exit to talk about before we move on to incomings is Tyreece Simpson. We know he's been brought back from his loan at Swindon. Contractual issue is what that's been explained as by Kieran McKenna. If a new deal can be agreed with him, and I think that is what they're working to do, then potentially another loan move could be coming for him. But to me, that feels unlikely for that series of events to all transpire within the case of these last few hours. So it could well be that he's carried at the club as a young striker, dipping in and out potentially, who Kieran McKenna can have a really good look at before the summer. That's my gut feeling on that one.
That'd be a real shame if that is the case for a young man who was clearly loving life at Swindon. 11 goals, not just that, had settled in really well off the pitch as well. To cut that short prematurely would be a shame for him and his development. But yeah, it's a bit of a strange situation, that one. It's still a few more questions than answers, but I hope something can be resolved before 11 o'clock tonight, and I hope ultimately he's back at Swindon, walking in like Conor McGregor a little bit later on. I'm back,
mate. They've already dished out his number 9 shirt to somebody else.
Yeah.
So he's gonna, he'll come back and he'll try and put his shirt on, and it'll be, oh, no, that's not yours anymore, Tyreece. You've got something else. Hopefully that does happen. Right, incomings. If all of those central midfield exits, which we've talked about 4 of them, if they all happened, could you see a scenario where they move for another central midfielder?
It's not impossible. It wouldn't shock me. Just recap who? So we've got Morsey and Evans, and then sort of backing them up, you would have Carroll and Backinson.
Yeah, that's if all 4 players left that we've discussed.
Yeah. Still think that's a reasonable number, but whether it's the right types of players, I don't know. It's whether there's a good opportunity there for Ipswich, and there's an obvious name that people are talking about, and that's Matete at Fleetwood, who was excellent against Ipswich earlier in the season. He's out of contract in the summer. Fleetwood, I think, financially might be forced into doing one of these sort of deals. You just wonder, don't you, with the Fraser deal, whether that's something that they'll look at.
He's definitely one they've talked about earlier in the transfer window. So for them to go back to it is not impossible. I think there's a desire, if possible, to avoid last minute transfers. obviously that's not always possible. You're not in control of the entire transfer market at a club. So if the deal presents itself at the right time, certainly not impossible.
It's not that wouldn't be necessarily a kind of get him in because we need him now for the short term push. It's an opportunistic one of like, let's get in here first before the summer rush. We see him as a player, not just for now but the future. He's 20 years of age. You just wonder, Ipswich probably don't mind playing a little bit of premium, a fee in January, rather than trying to sort of battle everybody else when he becomes potentially a free agent. Yeah, watch this space on that one.
Any other positions that you would be let's talk the here and now, obviously in the same vein as Matete there, or Matet. I've got no idea how we're pronouncing that. Let's deal with that one down the road. If a situation like that arose and there's a player for the future that they can get hold of, I guess anything goes. But in terms of the here and now, is there any position on that pitch that you think they need to be doing something for before the deadline tonight?
Don't think there's anything they desperately need. I think getting in Dominic Thompson for the left side was the most obvious slot to fill. There's an argument that another centre half is required with Toto Nsiala leaving. We've got Edmondson, Wolfenden, Danassian and Cameron Burgess backing them up. So playing the current back three system, you're arguably one light there. But that said, Dominic Thompson, from what we gather, might be able to slot into a back three and use that versatility as well. So not desperate, but possible. And then you just wonder at the top end of the pitch if Kieran McKenna's talked about not just getting someone that will improve them, but somebody that will just give them different type of qualities. And Ipswich have got attacking options in abundance, but some similarities between Salinas and Aluko and Chaplin and players like that. You wonder if he might look for someone that's a proper wide option. He turned to Caden Jackson recently because he was someone that could stretch the defence with his pace. A young loanee from one of his good Premier League contacts. That's just it doesn't matter if they play all the time. It's just another option. I just wonder,
like a flyer, almost like a Louis Barry kind of flyer option from the summer, which we've seen that one not come off, but they can come off, can't they? And if they can give you 10 good games out of the remaining 17, then you never know. Got any names of these young lads that they're going to sign?
No.
You're going to pluck one out of the air? You're going to magically make one appear?
I haven't got a name. No, I haven't got a name for you, Andy, at this stage. Yeah, I guess the other conversation is around strikers. And we've always said that managers always want to sign strikers. We're late in the day now. It looks like Caden Jackson is here to stay from his start recently and what McKenna's said. But Joe Pigott, is there any chance that somebody might have a little late dabble for him? You talked about Scott Fraser maybe agitating for a move. I think Joe Pigott would be falling in that same frustrated category. Someone that's not only seen Bonn take the headlines ahead of him, but has now seen Norwood jump back ahead of him in the pecking order. Jackson get game time ahead of him recently. Any danger that someone has a little last chance for Pigott and Ipswich would be open to the conversation? And if that happens, McKenna might go for another striker. I don't know.
I think if that, I think there is a chance that somebody would think that he was a 20 goal League One striker last season, not playing. Kind of, you could argue he's certainly third choice, isn't he? You could argue he's fourth choice. I think somebody probably will be discussing that somewhere across the EFL today. And I think if that offer came in late, I think Ipswich would have to look for somebody else to replace him. I don't know if McKenna will have seen enough of Tyreece Simpson yet to be comfortable with him being that replacement. He would have trained with them probably twice by this point, and I'm not sure they'll be ready at this point just to allow that one to happen. But if it makes the right business sense, with Scott Fraser, there was a transfer fee involved in the summer. Sounds like they're going to recoup that. Joe Pigott was a free transfer, wasn't he? So in terms of the business side of things, I think his value would hold up until the summer. So depends how late in the day that offer comes for Joe. If it does, if it came this morning, I would think they would seriously consider it. If it came late, I don't think they would, because you'd need to replace, I think.
Interesting. Let's see what the day ahead brings. Yeah, we're used to fairly quiet transfer deadline days with Ipswich Town. No longer under the game changer era. Things have hotted up. We had some late deals, didn't we, in the summer with Morsey and Selina and Walton were all quite late over those last couple of days. Let's see what today brings.